Okay, so now we're moving on to chapter 12, which is representing data. 12.1, there are several things. We are doing sample space. This is more of a diagrammatical type of thing. But again, check your vocabulary. There's a lot of new vocabulary. Okay, so sample space is the way that you set out your information. You can do it on a tree diagram. You can make a list, or you can put it in a table. It's entirely up to you. But again, it's one of these where which way does the question ask, or which is easiest for you. So whichever one you find is best to represent the data from the given question, that's the one that you need to go for. All right. So now we're looking at question number 1 in example 1. You've got to make 3 things. You've got to make a list, a table, and a tree diagram. So let's start with the list. Okay, and he bats, so he either gets to a base or is out, and he bats twice. So let's just say he bats both of his times, he hits the ball and he gets to bases. So base, base, all right. It may be the opposite of that. He may hit the ball twice, but out both times. So that's out and out. Okay, or he could do one of each. So he could go a base and an out, or he could be out and a base. All right, so that's the list. Okay, what comes next? The next one is you're going to make a table. Okay, so basically you're just going to put that same information in a table. So what can you put on the table? All right, so let's have a look at this top line to see what we can do. All right, we're going to split it into 3 because we want to know what the outcomes are. Okay, unfortunately I can't write it very well, but that's outcomes. Either he makes base or is out. Okay, and then the same this way as well. You know, either is at base or is out. It can't be both, so that's what he's going to do. So again, like we did the first one, it could be base and base, so that means he makes both bases. So in other words, we're doing like a 2-way table. So if I'm coming to this one, I'm coming across from base and he's out, so that's going to be B and O. Now we're down to this line, which is out. Again, we're crossing it across, we're going across the table, so it's out and base. Or like we said, both of them could be both of them out. Okay, right. So now let's have a look at where we go with the. So now let's look at the. So there's the table. So let's have a look at the tree diagram. Okay, same thing again. Well. What are the outcomes? What happens? What could he outcomes? What could he do or she do? Okay, well, let's have a look at what he's got. On the first one is either going to be a base or is going to be out. Okay, the second one is either going to be a base and an out, or the second one's going to be a base and an out. Okay, so you can see what you can do if you work along each of them for what you're going to get. And as you can see, all of these will work back to the list and the table. Okay, so now we're looking at example 2. Now all we're doing is tree diagrams. Now what's the problem with tree diagrams? Unfortunately, the more options you get, the bigger it goes. Okay, so what does it tell you? It says Keandra asks each customer questions from the script, etc., etc. What size burger do you want? Do you want cheese with it? Do you want tomatoes with it? Do you want pickles with it? Okay, so start off with obviously the burger. Either you can have a king size, a regular, or a large. So the first line here is the size of the burger. So either king, regular, or large. Okay, and then work along the list. Okay, so the next one's obviously cheese. So you're either going to have cheese with your king or no cheese. Cheese with your regular or no cheese, etc., etc. Working down next with pickle, with tomato, and then with pickles. Okay, so as you can see, it will grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And then if you finish up with following each of the lines down from the outcomes, you can just make a sample space diagram from your tree diagram. But as you can see, the more information you've got, the bigger it's going to get. Okay, so just take your time, and then when you've finished doing your tree diagram, work along each of the branches of the tree in order to come out with your space diagram. Let's have a look at how that fits in with question, number 3. Well, obviously he wants a suit, so we're going to start here with suit. All right, and then start looking at things. Right, well, let's start with the colour. Either the colour is going to be black or it's going to be ivory. Okay, and I'm just going to go down one of them in order to fit it on my page. But what comes next? Okay, so leave the additional options right to the end, but let's go with what you've got. Okay, so now the tie colour is going to go next, and you've got to make a decision whether it's umber, sage, or umber, sage, rust, and periwinkle. Okay, so if you think about it now, we're going to have 4 branches down, so either it's going to be umber, sage, rust, and periwinkle. Okay, so we've got that. And then obviously whether he wants a vest and or a cummerbund. Well, bearing in mind he doesn't have to have any of them. So let's have a look at what he wants. Well, we've got at least 3 coming out of each one. Okay, so he could have a vest, he could have a cummerbund, or he can have none of them. All right, and then that's going to follow on the way down with all the rest. But let's have a look at your space diagram. So if I go with the top line, I'm going to have an I, U, and a V. If I follow that top line still, I've got an I, U, and C, or I can have an I, U, and N. Okay, so we're still on with the I's, so the I. Now we've done the top line, so let's go along with the S's, and we would have the same thing. So it would be I, S, and V. It could be I, S, and C, and I, S, and N. All right, so all this is going to take a lot of time. So I strongly recommend you put it on a piece of paper and then photo it, the same thing, and upload it onto your piece of paper. So then we're going from a tree diagram, and as you can see, that takes quite a while. Coming down to you just using mathematics in order to find it. And this, what we're going to do with this one is called fundamental counting principle. Okay, so here's all your options, okay, and the number of choices from each one. And as you can see, whether you have what type of, so you've got 10 different metals, you've got 2 different finishes, stone colours, you've got 12, the cuts of the stones 5, etc, etc. Well, obviously you've got a lot of options there. Well, if you use the fundamental counting instead of doing a tree diagram, as you can see, all you're actually going to do is multiply your numbers together. So back to my favourite number crunching, okay? So if you multiply each choice by the previous choices, what are you going to get? So if you had all those different metals and finishes and stone colours and stone cuts and keep going all the way down, you would actually finish up with 960,000 different rings that you could make from the choices that you've got. So working on the principle from example 3, what have we got here? Desiree is preparing a homecoming, must decide what to wear, assume one of each choice. Well, she's got 15 different dresses, 5 pairs of shoes to choose from, 3 purses, 4 earrings, and 2 necklaces. Okay, so now it just becomes a multiplication. So you're going to do 15 times 5 times 3 times 4 times 2, and if you put all that into your calculator, it comes up to 1800. Okay, so you've got 1800 different combinations that you can wear from those options.